So my name is Kenneth Quinn, and I grew up in Iowa, the state of Iowa, in the middle of the United States, and went to college there and then on to graduate school and eventually got a PhD in international relations from the University of Maryland. I had a 32-year career as a member of the American Foreign Service, the American Diplomatic Corps, and I retired in 1999, and since then, I have been the president of the World Food Prize Foundation, which is located in Des Moines, Iowa, my home state. Now, I should emphasize that the World Food Prize is an entirely independent international organization. The World Food Prize Foundation was created by Dr. Norman Borlaug, a man who is honored and revered in both the United States and Iran and many other countries around the globe. And he created it to be the Nobel Prize for Food and Agriculture. And each year, the World Food Prize gives a $250,000 prize to an individual who has made a Nobel-like breakthrough achievement in increasing the quality, quantity, and availability of food in the world. Well, the 2014 is the year in which we celebrated the centennial, the 100-year anniversary of the birth of Dr. Norman Borlaug. And there have been events all around the globe to honor him for his role in developing miracle wheat and then taking it to countries that were facing imminent famine and potential starvation and loss of life. In the 1960s, Dr. Borlaug received the Nobel Peace Prize for being the father of the Green Revolution. So as the founder of the World Food Prize, we have been at the center of celebrating his life. He passed away 5 years ago, at the age of 95. And so there have been events. And in July, we received a message from the Agricultural Biotechnology Research Institute of Iran, informing us that they were holding a ceremony to honor Dr. Borlaug on August 26th as part of the 13th Iranian Crop Science Congress. Well, I was quite startled because I had no idea that Dr. Borlaug was as revered and honored in Iran. And I was informed that in 2000, Iran had presented to him a special gold medal from the Ministry of Agriculture in honor of his achievements. Dr. Borlaug was involved in training scientists from Iran. This is a wonderful thing to know about, a unique opportunity, and I think Dr. Borlaug would want me to go. So I wrote a letter to the hosts, accepting their invitation and filling out the paperwork necessary to apply for a visa. So that's how I got started on this process. And I arrived in Tehran actually at about 1:30 in the morning of August 26th, the day I was to speak. Was very nicely housed at the Minister of Agriculture's guest house. We couldn't have been treated better. Got there and got to bed about 4 a.m. and was awakened at 6 a.m. to begin the trip to Karaj, where the conference would take place. So I kind of walked in the door there about an hour or so before the conference was to start, and ready to give my remarks. Well, I had never been to Iran before. My knowledge about Iran was, in some respects, quite limited. I have, worked in the Middle East a little bit in terms of work of UN programs, but that was a long time ago. Of course, read what's in the newspapers. So I didn't know what to expect or what kind of reception there would be for me. particularly since I was a former United States ambassador and senior U.S. government official. Well, we were received very, very well. We were graciously welcomed to the Crop Science Congress on the campus of the Agricultural Institutes in Karaj. So everyone was very nice to us and assured us that once we arrived in Iran, that we would be their guests. So it was very nice and very welcoming. Well, a couple of things that really stood out. One was the very warm hospitality that was extended to us by everyone that we came in contact with. We were always offered wonderful food, opportunity to experience the culture directly. People wanted to give us gifts, and sometimes people who didn't have very much. My wife was just commenting and admiring about a ring that one of the staff at the Minister of Agriculture's guest house had. And this wonderful woman took it off her finger and wanted to give it to my wife, who, of course, felt she couldn't accept it, but it was a gesture that just touched our hearts. And this was, repeated by others with whom we interacted, and as we were leaving, they gave us a small gift to take with us as a memory of Iran. So one of the things that really stood out was how warm, how hospitable people were. A second thing is that people were surprised and pleased to find out that we were Americans. So when we went to visit one or two of the museums, people would look at us and say, "Oh, where are you from?" And we'd say, "Oh, we're from the United States." And they'd be surprised that we had a visa and we came there. But they had big smiles on their face that some Americans were coming. So that also, stayed with me. The third thing is we had an opportunity to go to a very traditional restaurant in Karaj, and we were sitting out on kind of large sort of beds with cushions on them, and you're sitting up there, and everyone's around in a circle, and the waiters and the staff of the restaurant are bringing all sorts of dishes and putting them down in front of us, and the food was wonderful, but just the ambiance of happiness that surrounded that meal as we were interacting and having a wonderfully delicious meal, but also just feeling with such a friendly, traditional environment. So we remember that as well. Well, we liked Iranian food, and we had a lot of the grilled meats. I got used to having breakfast with kind of the flat bread. I put my cheese on and my walnuts on, and I took a bite and I said, "Oh, wow, this is delicious. I'm going to have another." And so finally my wife had to stop me. I was eating so many of them on there. So we liked that. We had the grilled fish, grilled meat, and that. So I think I ate too much. I might have put on a few pounds while we were in Iran. I noted this in my remarks, that what really struck me was that Dr. Borlaug was considered as a great hero in Iran, just as he is in the United States. Isn't it remarkable that this man, this agricultural scientist, would be so admired in both countries? Secondly, is that Iranian food scientists are very, very strong proponents of biotechnology, as was Dr. Borlaug, and as is many of the leading experts in the United States. In fact, this wonderful gift that was presented to me as I was leaving has on it a quote about biotechnology. And the Iranian Ministry of Agriculture created a much larger version of this with the same image of Dr. Borlaug and with his quote in English and in Farsi. So I explained that there are some remarkable opportunities for Iranian and American cooperation following Dr. Borlaug's lead. So Dr. Borlaug worked on wheat, and he endeavored to defeat a terrible scourge called rust disease. And rust disease affects wheat all over the world, and it causes the plant to blister and then to die. Now, Dr. Borlaug had a dream, and his dream was that using biotechnology, that one day scientists could take from the rice plant, which is never affected by rust disease, take from that plant, that rice plant, the genes that keep rice from ever getting rust disease, and using biotechnology, implant it into wheat, and that it could forever eradicate from the face of the earth this scourge of rust disease, which affects countries all over the globe, and including Iran, including the United States. And I said to them, wouldn't it be a great moment if Iranian scientists and American scientists and scientists from other countries all could work together and have this achievement? What greater tribute could there be to Dr. Borlaug than together we eradicate this from the face of the earth? And I said, to that end, I have extended an invitation to an Iranian wheat scientist to come to Des Moines, Iowa on October 15 through 18 to come to the World Food Prize, where we are having our Borlaug symposium. We call it the Borlaug Dialogue. We have a special panel on wheat with experts from all around the world. And here would be an opportunity for us to extend that cooperation. And so they have identified a scientist. I hope he'll be able to get a visa and come and take part. But I said this could be a way that we Americans, Iranians, could stand together and cheer for the same thing. Because Dr. Borlaug remembered a quote he heard at the Nobel Peace Prize. And the quote was, "People who can stand together and cheer for the same thing together can live in peace together." And when I finished my remarks, I was stunned and taken aback that this audience of 400 Iranian officials and scientists, with the Minister of Agriculture and representatives of the Supreme Leader of Iran, stood and gave me a standing ovation, applauding for my message about Dr. Borlaug and about cooperation. So I, who had come to Iran apprehensive about how I would be received, was standing there with this Iranian audience, standing and cheering for my message and for Dr. Borlaug's message. I know that issues of climate are very important, issues around water, critically important for agricultural development. So I think these would be two places in which there could be further work together. Education and educational exchanges. We have a Global Youth Institute for high school students at the World Food Prize, and I extended an invitation in Iran for them to choose 2 high school students and 2 high school teachers to come and be part of that process. And so these are traditional areas for exchanges that could be possible where you can take certain steps. And one other is, you know, that Dr. Borlaug was a college wrestler. And I made this point in my speech that I know how much wrestling is an admired sport in Iran, and I thought even there could be opportunities in sports and sports exchanges. It would be wonderful to have some Iranian wrestlers come to Iowa, which is the wrestling capital of America, as well. So there could be a lot of opportunities to do things in those other scientific areas, in education, certainly in cultural exchanges. I pointed out that the first mosque in the United States was built in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And so there can even be opportunities for interfaith exchanges and understanding. My message to the Iranian people would be that having been there and having got to meet some Iranians, I see that they are wonderful people, that there are many things that Americans and Iranians could share and enjoy and understand. And I look forward and I very much hope that the steps that were taken on my trip, small steps, first steps, would lead to even more significant interaction over the coming years, and that we find things that we can do together and maybe stand together and cheer about together.